Hey vinyl community, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records, and I'm wanting to enter Chris Propfe's Musically Obsessed contest for his 413 subscribers. Of course, he's above that now, but he wanted to mark that milestone of getting over 400 there. So he's calling it the 413 subs contest. Before I get started, what are we listening to? From Clean Records, Delbert and Glenn, and this is Delbert McClinton and Glenn Clark. They did a couple of duo albums before going out on their own solo. Delbert's maybe my favorite artist of all time, and this is from 1972. Sounds really good. Right over there. Okay. Chris wants us to show our 4 favorite albums, 1 album we bought on a whim, and 3 albums that we feel are essential for their particular genre. So I'll go ahead and get started here. My 4 favorite albums would be, this would vary from day to day, or maybe hour to hour for that matter. Also, I didn't want to pull the same old records I've pulled several times to mark as some of my favorite records. We've all got a bunch of favorites, I'm sure, and so here are 4 of my favorites, I guess you would say. First one from 1980. I noticed all these records I pulled come from the time I was in my late teens, early 20s, from about 17 to 20 or 21 years old. So the first one is Rock Pile, and the album is called Seconds of Pleasure, and it is an album from 1980. Rock Pile was Billy Bremner on guitar and vocals, Dave Edmunds on guitar, vocals, piano, and organ, Nick Lowe on bass and vocals, and Terry Williams on drums. And all those names should sound very familiar to anybody that is familiar with that period of, I don't know, I'd call it a roots rock revival in the 80s, coming out of England. It's all these guys played on a lot of key albums and with a lot of key artists, produced artists. Dave Edmunds and Nick Lowe both produced a lot of stuff, but there they are. Very good album. I remember buying this at the Record Exchange in Boone on King Street, Boone, North Carolina, and it came, if you bought one of the first, I don't know, maybe 5,000 records, or could have been more, could have been less, you got a EP, a 7-inch EP with it, of Edmunds and Lowe doing Everly Brothers covers. Really good. I've got that too. I'm not going to go pull it now. But there they are. I always liked Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds' solo work, and the work they produced too. They produced some really good albums. Okay, so there's a really good one. I highly recommend this for anybody looking for a good, unpretentious rock and roll album. This was coming up during the period, beginning of the hair bands and the big arena performance rock artists that kind of just took everything too far. This is more true to the full name, rock and roll, not just rock and roll. Okay, so check that out if you're not familiar with Rock Pile. If you hadn't listened to them in a while, I recommend you taking them for a spin. Okay, and from 1978, Little Feat, Waiting for Columbus. And this is a live album, of course, and this is the one up to this point. I think Little Feat had been more of a niche band. They had their following, but they didn't sell a large number of records. But this put them in the big rock star category. Just a really good album from a great band, an ensemble of players that are hard to beat. Of course, Lowell George is the most well-known in the group, but Bill Payne, Ricky Hayward on the drums, Paul Barreri, Sam Clayton. Mary Clayton is Sam's. Sam's doing a lot of percussion work. Mary Clayton is his sister, who's one of the best. Is one of the best background singers in rock and roll. The Tower of Power horns are on this album too, and the artwork is done by, can I get it there? Neon Parks, or Neon Park right here. And he did all the cool artwork on Little Feat albums. But this is a live album, but don't be fooled when they say live album. This isn't like a board tape or anything. They went back and listened to it and, you know, made changes, stuff they weren't pleased with. They dubbed the guitar solo back, you know, over the live recording that came in. They maybe cleaned up their vocals and things like that. It's not, and that's true on all these live records. Don't think they're just, unless you got a board tape from a Grateful Dead show or something, or you were sitting in one of the front rows at Grateful Dead show and you had your mics up and you were recording it. They're all doctored, and you know it shouldn't be any surprise. And it's not like they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to put out the best product they can. But this has got the classic Little Feat songs, my favorite Little Feat song of all time, one of my favorite all-time songs, because it just gives you that picture in your mind. It's kind of quirky, Fat Man in the Bathtub. I love that song. Oh Atlanta, Old Folks Boogie, Spanish Moon, Mercenary Territory, Time Loves a Hero, of course Dixie Chicken. The Dixie Chicks took their name from that song. Rocket in My Pocket, of course, the classic, been redone by so many artists since then. Willin', Sailing Shoes, Apolitical Blues, Feet Don't Fail Me Now. Just a great album. And here's a compilation. I hope I'm not cheating with a compilation. But this is just an unbelievably good album. I could just as easily put this in with the genre essentials, I suppose. Merle Haggard and the Strangers, songs I'll always sing. On Capitol, this is one of those, you know, something they put out after the fact. 2 records, but it's not a gatefold. And it contains all the 60s, the greatest songs from the 60s and early 70s. This was from 1977. And Working Man Blues, Love and Honor. Oh, I love that song, Love and Honor. Someday We'll Look Back. I take a lot of pride in what I am. Fight Inside of Me. Sing Me Back Home. Uncle M, Swinging Doors, oh gosh, Mama Tried, of course it's got Okie from Stokey on it, I'm a Lonesome Fugitive, Daddy Frank, the Guitar Man. I used to have this as an 8-track and an album. This is the album I have from way back. I know because I used to put my name on a little white strip here at the bottom of all my records. So this was probably from 1977, 78, somewhere in there. I bought this, but I used to have this as an 8-track in my car, and all, you know, this is, I'm talking about when I'm like 12th grade in high school, and of course most of my friends were anti-country. Well, if they got in my car and we went riding around, you know, which is small town America, that's about all you had to do is go ride around or hang out somewhere. We go riding around. This is the 8-track that got stuck in my player, and they were a captive audience. and I converted many a young person, young peer, into a country music fan by the time they got out of my car, man. Once you hear it, you can't get over it. It's so good. All right. And from 1980, the album Quintet 80 from David Grisman. This is one of his quintet albums. All acoustic music. Tony Rice isn't in the band at this point. Daryl Anger, mainly violin, but cello and other instruments. Mike Marshall playing mandolins and guitars. Mark O'Connor playing guitar and violin, and David Wasserman playing bass. This is where, and this is on, is it on Warner Brothers? Yeah, it's on Warner Brothers. This is where bluegrass and classical and jazz really started mixing together. Not that people didn't do it before this, but it really got a boost in both exposure and creativity with this album. Most of the compositions are David Grisman compositions, but there's a John Coltrane on here. Naima, is that how you say it? Naima. My jazz buddies, I'm sure, are going, gosh, you butchered that. But it's all acoustic, it's all instrumental. Just a really, really great album. If you like stringed instruments, that is one you really need. All right. Album you bought on a whim. I'm going to show you a little stack of albums. I buy them on a whim. I started buying them as a whim, and I just pick them all up when I see them if they're in halfway decent shape. And they're these comedy records. Now, there were a lot of comedy records in the 60s, and Brother Dave Gardner, I remember, and my dad used to laugh and listen to Brother Dave, and Bob Newhart had comedy records. And then there was, Red Fox used to do the racy records, but I wasn't familiar with this one until I picked the first one up, and like this is supposed to be real racy, but truth is, by 9 o'clock in the evening, if you watch, network TV, you will hear a whole lot worse than this. But I guess for its point in time, it was considered kind of racy. It's Rusty Warren. There's Rusty. Very sophisticated looking lady. And this is another hilarious comedy album that has Mr. and Mrs. America rolling on the floor. Songs for Sinners. Rusty Warren. And this may be your most famous one, Knockers Up. Rusty Warren, the hilarious comedy album that has, again, Mr. and Mrs. America rolling on the floor from coast to coast. On side one, I wish I could shimmy like my sister Kate. It's one of the routines she does. And here's Rusty Warren Bounces Back. A Jubilee Life of the Party comedy album for adults only. And usually they don't have titles. From that one that I just showed before this had titles. And Sensational Rusty Warren. And it's got the same little sticker there. And here's one I found that appears to be a autographed copy. And this is Rusty Warren, Bottoms Up for Adults Only. And it's signed to Larry and Barbara. I can't remember, I'm not sure what it says, but it is Rusty Warren here. But obviously they probably saw or went to a nightclub and heard her and got that. But but they're funny. There's nothing nasty about it. It's just a little risque, you know. So it's good. Okay. 3 albums essential for their genre. Okay. Really, if you're going to listen to folk music, you really need to have this album. I would call it the self-titled Bob Dylan album. I would call this an essential album for the commercial folk boom. I mean, it wasn't one of the first folk albums. Of course, the folk revival really got started in the mid to late 50s, and lasted 10 years or so. And if you're into folk rock, I would say you need this as a primer before you get into the folk rock. This is produced by John Hammond, who was such a big promoter of jazz and blues. Chris, vinyl guy, blues guy vinyl, mentioned John Hammond. Was it he and Mazzy? We're talking about John Hammond on their video recently, and he produced this, discovered Bob Dylan. Just the first 2 paragraphs on here says, Columbia Records is proud to introduce a major new figure in American folk music, Bob Dylan. Excitement has been running high since the young man with a guitar ambled into a Columbia recording studio for 2 sessions in November 1961. For at only 20, Dylan is the most unusual new talent in American folk music. Great album. You really maybe reintroduced a lot of people that didn't know about Woody Guthrie through Dylan. Was precursor to folk rock. He does a lot of things that he's reworked that are kind of Woody Guthrie-ish. Of course, Woody Guthrie reworked other people's stuff, so it's not like there's anything wrong with that at all. It's, artists do that constantly. We've got Talking New York, My Day of Dying, Man of Constant Sorrow, which of course we know, a lot of people know from Ralph Stanley's version on Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Let's see, Pretty Peggy O's on here, Freight Train Blues, Song to Woody, House of the Rising Sun's not on here. Did he do this before? I think he did, before the Animals. Animals probably did it around 64, 65. So this is probably 62. I don't know if that influenced him recording that or not. The Animals recording that. I don't know if Dylan's version influenced that or not. Of course, it's a standard. Okay. If you're going to get into the jam bands, you probably really need Europe 72 from the Grateful Dead. Not that this is exceedingly jammy. I mean, it is. They do their standards. This is a 3-record set, and I don't know why, but they put, you have to flip it over. It's upside down inside here. Most of these songs run 5, 7 minutes, 4 minutes. No 3-minute singles type songs on here. Morning Dew runs 10 minutes and 35 seconds. I guess that's a good example of jam band. But this is just a great album. I love this. Europe 72, which it came out in 72, of course. Let's see. The lineup, Pigpen's still in the band at this point. He hasn't passed away. Donna's in the band here. And, of course, they credit Robert Hunter as a songwriter, as a part of the band, even though he doesn't play with the band. But this is just a great live album. And, if you appreciate jam band music, nobody does it better than Grateful Dead, or did it better than Grateful Dead. And that's just a really, really good album in the jam band genre. And finally, Texas singer-songwriter genre, Guy Clark, Old Number One, his first album. If you're into Texas singer-songwriters, you need to try to get this. Now, you might have some trouble getting this as an album, vinyl. So I, look for it as a CD. You're going to pay big money for this. I had to send off. I bought it from a Spanish company, and Spanish sellers on Discogs don't have the best reputation. Although this particular seller did have good ratings, but I had to. They had it in Mexico. They shipped it to me from Mexico, but it was a Spanish company, so I don't understand what's going on there. But I didn't have this. I had Texas Cooking, his next album, from the get-go. But I was a little, this is 1975, so I was only, 16 years old at this point. And so I didn't buy it when it immediately came out. And by 1980 or so, 81, I was trying to get this album, and you just couldn't get it. I'm talking about getting it new. The record stores I would go to, well, can you order it for me? And they would try, and eventually the record, I think it's called I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was the Record Exchange in Boone, North Carolina on King Street. I believe they, I've got up here a European import. I had to pay big money, not big money, but more than a regular album cost to get it. But she ordered it for me, and it had most of the songs from this album and most of the songs from Texas Cooking put together in one single album. So of course, quality wise, they're jamming a bunch of music into one side or two sides of vinyl. 2 records worth, so question that a little bit, but that was the only way I could get it. Now I have it as a CD, but I always wanted the vinyl, and finally I got this. This has got just classic songs: Rita Ballou, L.A. Freeway, She Ain't Going Nowhere, A Nickel for the Fiddler, That Old Time Feeling, Texas 1947, Desperados, Waiting for a Train. Oh, that's a great song. Like a Coat from the Cold, Instant Coffee Blues, and maybe my favorite Guy Clark song, at least today it is, Let 'Em Roll. Okay, telling the story of a fellow that died of a broken heart. So that is my entry into Chris Propfe, the Musically Obsessed guys contest. And Chris, always enjoy your channel. Any of you out there that don't know Chris's channel, I'll put a link down here in the description. Chris has got great a variety of music. He not only shows albums and CDs, but he also plays some stuff on his guitar. He's really very talented. So 4 favorite albums, album bought on a whim, and 3 albums that are essential to their genre. Enjoyed doing this one. Everybody, remember, be kind to your neighbors, because we're all neighbors here. Doesn't matter how far away we are from one another, we're all neighbors. All right.